Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Why Ukraine live stream. I want to thank you all for coming. And, uh, well, as you can see, I'm in a new place. Um, can't tell you where, what city, or village, uh, but I want to thank you all for coming. Um, and I'm going to, if I seem a little bit unprepared, that's legitimate because, it's a little crazy here. What can I say? Um, it's been I haven't done a live stream in 2 weeks, although I was on the Shills, of course, uh, just a kind of time slot, I guess, there. Um, but yeah, uh, this is one of my videos here. If you haven't seen one of my shorts, I put together a bunch of shorts. And Bill, thank you so much. And by the way, Bill, I have noticed that you donated to me um, a couple of times in the past week, and you really don't know how much it means to me doing that right now because I mean obviously I can't stream because I'm working, um, and I can't tell you what I'm doing. Um, but we're gonna what I can talk about is just in general um, the things that are going on here in Ukraine. It's somewhat ironic um, that as I get deeper and deeper into, you know, the war, um, the deeper I get, the less I can talk about in specifics, you know? Like, I have to be real careful talking about what's happening on the front line, um, because what if I accidentally say something that people aren't supposed to know? Uh, it wasn't me. Thank you for asking how I'm doing. Merry Christmas, everyone. Uh, and a blessed Yule to those Yazichniks out there. If you don't know what a Yazichnik is, that's the Ukrainian word for a pagan or a heathen. Um, so pagans and heathens, they have Yule or solstice, Christmas too. Um, I did not have the day off for Christmas, even though it is the 25th here in Ukraine is a national holiday. Um, that's a new thing that's just happened since the war started. Prior to that, Christmas was on January 7th, January 6th and January 7th. But 6th, I guess, January 6th is the New Year's Eve. I'm sorry. Oh my God, Christmas Eve. Um, but I wanted to just talk about that a little bit. Um, thank you. It wasn't you. I'm glad you understand my situation. Um, and I just want to welcome everybody. Frag, Mitch, Shirkan, hi. Um, Ronnie, where are my weed smokers at? Um, I can't tell you that, Ronnie, but I'll just tell you that they exist. And I can't tell you where they are here, uh, but I know some of them. Let's say that. Keep it fluffy. Ooh, Shere Khan, I like that phrase. Keep it fluffy. Um, Ken, UTV and Ham, thank you very much for coming. Um, I understand. I wasn't able to do my usual like promotions, spamming links on every YouTube or Discord channel today. I was in, right up until 20 minutes ago, I was working. and we just got well, I can't tell you okay, we'll just say we just got internet here in this, shared space. As you can see, it's a new space, um, and, uh, yeah, oh, Silver Earth, thank you for coming in, I appreciate you all being here. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a couple of things about Christmas, actually, and I hope that you're all having just an amazing, wonderful Christmas. Um, I don't know if you remember the phrase from Chronicles of Narnia, one of my favorite books. Um, the the big bad in Chronicles of Narnia, uh, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, uh, she makes it so that in this land, in this the land of Narnia, it's always winter and never Christmas. And I always thought that was just terrible. When I was a kid, like it's the worst possible thing. Who would want to do that? And what I understand now is that maybe C.S. Lewis was writing a critique of communism under. Oh, hey, Scruffy, thank you for coming. Really glad to see you. I think maybe I don't know. I'm supposing because that's you know one of the first things that the communists tried to do here, and I really want to emphasize how Ukrainian society, at the individual level and at the most basic social groups, are sort of traumatized. Like generational trauma, abusive relationship type trauma that they exhibit. Probably expressed in their genes, epigenetically. I don't know if you guys know what epigenetics is, but it's relatively newly discovered part of genetics that has proven that trauma experienced by an individual can transcend generations at the level of DNA, or the molecules around the DNA molecule that cause genes to be expressed. Um, so I hate to say it, but Ukraine and Ukrainians have a sort of uh, generational trauma around Christmas and New Year's. I mean, obviously they love the holiday and they celebrate it. And it's very interesting. Christmas here is um, kind of it's like a month long celebration, spread out, stretched out. But when you ask people, like, what are you doing for Christmas? They might say to you, I'm not religious. Like, that's interesting. I mean, I understand, like, it's Jesus's birth day. Not really. If you're a biblical scholar, you know that Jesus was probably not actually born on December 25th, but that's when we celebrate, right? Also, Mithra was born on December 25th. I don't know, maybe some other gods, Dionysus. But for Ukrainians, the celebration of Christmas, it's a religious holiday. You go to church, and going to church here is not like going to church in America. There's no chairs, okay? There's no sermon. You go into the church, and the priest maybe sings some songs in old Slavonic that you can't understand, and maybe goes around and blesses you with a tree branch, although that could be Easter. Um, I'm glad you're listening, uh, Ken, because I'm not really showing a lot of graphics here, so it's okay. I'm kind of painting a picture in your mind, if I can, but maybe I'll, Ukraine Orthodox Christmas. Let's see what we can find here, just to kind of paint a picture for you. Oh, yeah, there's definitely lighting of the candles. That's a big deal. Um, you've got the priests, and they sing, and this beautiful singing, okay, of songs. So, yeah, like they say here, Christmas in Ukraine is now officially celebrated on the 25th of December. Previously, before 2023, it was celebrated on January the 7th. The reason it was celebrated on January the 7th is because the Orthodox Church still, well, until just now, both the Ukrainian and the Russian Orthodox Church ran on the Julian calendar, which is different from the Gregorian calendar. They're about 2 weeks difference between something. So I will say that it's hard to change these sort of things. I think most people here in Ukraine are probably still going to celebrate Christmas on the 7th of January. But the day that the day so and it wasn't me that's interesting. It wasn't me says for me Christmas is more about family than religion. And that is something that a lot of Ukrainians would say too. If they're not religious, they might say, yeah, it's just a day to go and visit your family and your relatives. And oh, hey, they exist. Says any bad actors in here because I'm the official badasser. Very cool. Thank you, by the way, for your help. So the day on which Ukrainians traditionally, do the giving of gifts, the way we celebrate Christmas, that's actually New Year's. They do that on New Year's, and the reason for this, Ronnie. Okay. Anyway, sorry. The reason that they celebrate New Year's as in the way that we traditionally would celebrate Christmas, or Christmas Eve for some people, is that under communism, Christmas was banned. Christmas was banned because it was, a religious holiday, and so it literally was always winter, never Christmas. Because it's freaking Russia, kind of. It's freaking cold as hell for a long time. Not like you get the basic idea. So I think that's maybe what C.S. Lewis was, you know, alluding to. I don't know if he meant it as an allegory, but and it was actually Joseph Stalin who uh, decided, well, we can't just ban Christmas. People really like Christmas, and if we do that, we're going to get some rebellion. So in 1927, if I'm not mistaken, he uh, changed. So let's see. I had this article up before, but Soviet Union Christmas. Christmas in Russia. Yeah, Christmas was largely erased from the Russian calendar for much of the 20th century. Um, and they basically tried to replace uh, Christmas with, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. And most people, like, nobody gives gifts or receives gifts on Christmas Day here in Ukraine, or very, very few practice it that way. Maybe in the far west of Ukraine, I would say. Um, Christmas trees, people do actually. People are buying Christmas trees like now. I saw people buying Christmas trees like yesterday and the day before because, again, they're not celebrating Christmas. Just like you buy your tree 2 weeks before, right? So Christmas for them is, "Oh, hey, Paul, Merry Christmas to all." Or in your case, "Are you sure you want to Merry Christmas?" That sounds like well, maybe it's a match made in heaven, I don't know. Sorry. Um, so yeah, it's kind of wrapped up with a little bit of trauma, and honestly, in some ways, celebrating Christmas was also an act of political rebellion here in Ukraine. Oh, it wasn't me, says, "Fun fact, in the former GDR," that's the East Germany, they called Santa Claus something like like, figure of the nearing end of the year, quite hard to translate, that's funny. Yeah, and in, the Soviet Union, they had Ded Moroz, so they tried to replace Santa Claus with Ded Moroz, which means basically grandfather winter. Yeah, there we go, Ded Moroz. Ded Moroz. Yeah, okay. So grandfather winter, sometimes shown in red like Santa Claus, but more often shown in blue. And well, they didn't really have Santa Claus to begin with. They had it was more like Saint Nikolai, and he was this much more of a you know saintly, priestly, religious figure. But his birthday, his old birthday, according to the Julian calendar, was um, December 19th. And so that was a day when children would receive some gifts. But again, that was a religious holiday, so that was banned. So you know, they wanted to uh, replace Saint Nikolai, as they say, with Didmeros, which did 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 I guess it's Didmeros. So Died means like grandfather. It's not dead; it's Died. I guess you could say Didmeros if you want. And they kind of created this whole little legend. Um, and he had a companion who was a little, like a young girl who would ride around on the sleigh with him. It was a total communist um, like legend. Yeah, here we go. Look up the Didmos or Morosco, a legendary figure similar to Saint Nicholas, who has roots in Slavic mythology. Yeah, maybe. But it was definitely an attempt to. Oh, at the beginning of the Soviet era, communists banned Denmeros. Yeah, okay. However, the ban was lifted, and soon he became a significant part. Moros, by the way, means frozen. Okay, that's what that means. Moros. Um, so like if I'm cold, I might say it's how bad my Ukrainian is. But yeah, холодно. Холодno means cold. But I say like ya moros. That's my bad version of saying I'm frozen. You so yeah, it's kind of all sort of just wrapped up in that, you know. Yeah, the sexy sidekick. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Let's see if I can find. Oh yeah, and this is her Snegorochka. Terrible sounding, or Snegerka. Sne. Oh my god, I really can't pronounce it. But it basically means snow maiden or snow girl, and she kind of accompanied Idros. Um, Yeah, and I've seen just like we have Christmas movies from, like, 1960s or whatever, that are slightly creepy about Santa Claus or Frosty the Snowman. They have these Christmas movies about, um, Did Moroz and Snegorochka. Snegorochka. Sneeze means snow. Um, and there's a guy whose name is Chorny, which means black. And he's like this kind of evil fairy puck. He's like a puck type character that honestly, for all the world, looks like a chimney sweep. Maybe, I don't know. But he's always trying to like pull tricks. He's kind of the Krampus, a little bit like Krampus. And anyway, so there's these sort of movies about that. Yeah, Yule got replaced by Christmas. Well, I mean, Ronnie says this, but um, Scruffy, of course, will know, being in Sweden, that you know, the Swedes still call it Yule. So, it didn't fully get replaced, right? But it's an interesting thing here because people, I would argue, at least before the war, I think Christmas is kind of been dampened pretty heavily, since the war started. It's hard to celebrate when you know your family, your husband, your father, brother, sister, mother, even is out there fighting in the cold. You know, and certainly in my home, Santa looks like a human-sized gnome. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. One of the drone pilot unit commanders, I don't know his name yet. In my mind, I just call him Angry Gnome. Sorry. We got Yule beer, Yule presents, the Yule Ram. Very cool. Yeah, I really do want to experience Yule in Sweden someday. So, um, this whole thing about, well, I posted. Let me see. I need to go to my channel. And by the way, oh my gosh, I had this playing in the background the whole time. This video that you guys see here, this is actually from this past summer. This does not reflect really the work I'm doing right now. This is from the volunteer work that I did over the summer, and I'm just now like posting videos. I have so many videos that my God, I haven't had time. Um, yeah, I was gonna ask Scruffy if they, uh, how do you say it? The Yavla goat, Scruffy. Did they burn it this year? um, if you guys don't know what the Yavla goat is, so in Sweden there's a yeah, there we go. There's a city called Yavla, the Yavla Balkan. And if you guys have ever heard of Yavla coffee, some people say probably gavel or something, but it's pronounced Yavla because the G is Y in Swedish. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scruffy, of course. Um, but they have this goat, big giant goat statue, usually made of hay or hay bales or wicker, perhaps. And it's not supposed to be burned. Okay. But every year for, I don't know, 100, 200 years, God knows how long, um, somebody sneaks in and sets it on fire. Anyway, you guys can look. I think it's a wonderful tradition. Um, yeah, the G is often a Y sound like you, and also the K is often a ch sound. So, like, I lived in the city of Yanchoping, and Yanchoping is spelled with a k with a K. Um, Yanchoping. Yeah, there we go. City in Sweden. It's pronounced Yanchoping, if you didn't know. Um, it's interesting that the G actually in Ukrainian is pronounced as a kind of a h and a g sound combined, which I still am trying to learn. Haven't completely learned yet. Um, but so on my community tab, I think it was, um, I made a little post. Um, I think this is just an important point to make because it leads into some of the things that I want to discuss. By the way, this is the reality of Russian traditional family values. I have someone in my family actually who, is Ukrainian born, not Ukrainian born, Ukrainian family descent, uh, but who lives in. I just highly recommend that watch as much of this as you can stomach this particular video because it really shows about like the Republicans and conservatives in America who want to uphold Russia as being some sort of um, bastion of virtue and traditional values. That's all bullshit, you know. Like this guy on Joe Rogan, you know, which you can watch the video about. I don't want to play his ass, platform his ass. In any case, um, I just a family member of mine was beaten to a freaking pulp by her husband, and you know they're getting a divorce, I believe, but he has basically total control of everything and has all the rights. And um, anyway, so this is the post that I wanted to talk about. So this is, of course, this is in Ukrainian, and so this is a discussion that's occurring in. Um, can I put the link in chat? Thank you for reminding me, Ronnie. I will do that right now. There we are. So this is a discussion that's happening at all levels within Ukrainian society. What to do, and this is a polite way of saying, marginal politics. This is a polite way of saying, what do we do with the people in our country, the politicians and things who supported or even continue to support Russia? So uh, it says, first, let's take a cold shower and look around. It's the third year of the Great War. Now, this is a translation, okay? So they're starting to use this term Great War. Instead of full scale invasion, they use the term Great War. And I usually tell Ukrainians, well, that means World War One. But this is the term they've started to use. Here in all our representative bodies, the deputies of the People's Party of Ukraine and Sharia Party, which I didn't know existed, feel at ease. Here at the local level, our land continues to exist, consisting of the Party of Regions and partly of the promoters of the Russian Spring 2014. Here, after the failed and discredited illustration, prosecutors from the Yanukovych era head the regional BEBs, like regional governments, essentially. All this exists right here and now. They all feel absolute impunity. So I want to just emphasize that this war is happening not just on the borders of Ukraine. but inside as well. It's this insidious Russian influence that you just don't realize how much on a knife's edge um, freedom is in Ukraine, and why Russia continues to believe that they can win, that they can turn Ukraine into a Belarusian style rump state, because they've, you know, um, Ukraine tried to, I can't remember exactly when, but I want to say before 2014, tried to ban pro Russian, maybe it's 2017, I don't know exactly, tried to ban, these pro Russian parties and people. And um, it's just very difficult to do. And for one thing, the courts, it's a little bit like Germany in the 1920s, where uh, the polit- the politics under the Weimar Republic, the the government, the political elected government was liberal and supported democracy for the most part, while the uh, unelected holdover um, judicial system, the judges, supported either monarchism or outright fascism. And so, even though Ukraine had this democracy, they had these lifetime judge appointments in the Supreme Court. Okay, that was still continuing even up to through the beginning of this war. You know, continued to support Russia at every turn and undermine the Ukrainian political system. Right, and it reminds me so much of, frankly, of America right now, because we in America, we have this court that is completely unbalanced and unhinged, and will be for a long time to come, because the old um, I'm sorry, I don't want to remember their names. The old bastards on the Supreme Court, they're probably going to retire under Trump's term, and he's going to replace them with super young, ultra right wingers, and ultimately, um, Ukraine has been fighting against this and is still fighting it. So the proposition that's being made here, just to skip to the end. Um, Ukrainians are looking at us. So secondly, we must recognize this as a potential threat. It exists, although not now. There is no question that a pro-Russian revenge will occur in the next elections after the war. Um, it says, however, this does not mean that such influence will not return in a few political cycles. Look at Georgia. Okay. Um, so what he says here, and this is a lot of Ukrainians are saying something very similar. Um, he says, so, and now to the main thing. What should we do with marginal politics? We're talking about the, and right wingers, basically. So he talks about this happening in Europe, right? What are we seeing now? A right wing political march from Paris to Warsaw, from Rome to Amsterdam. This was also considered impossible, but has become a fact. So in Europe, these right wing parties have gone from um, 7 to 10%, and now they're in the 20s and 30s or more. And all of this is being, this is all a Russian psyop. It's all Russia doing what it has done in Georgia, in Belarus, in Ukraine over the last 30 years. It's repeating that same thing uh, in Europe, and arguably in America as well, because it's a heck of a lot cheaper. For the price of one missile, you could buy 10 politicians, you know? Honestly, you don't have to give every politician even $1 million, right? And that's true in most countries, in most Western countries, you know? Um, yeah, 2004. Thank you, Frag. That you might be right on that. Um, and it's very interesting that they're supporting these far right and far left, right? So communists and Nazis at the same time. And so I just want to read this statement at the end of the article, which I included in the my quote here on the community tab here. Um, so, and now to the main thing: what should we do with marginal politics, which is no longer marginal? Here is the only way out: a new social contract from top to bottom. What should the subject of what should be the subject of this contract? That those who participated in the political movements of communist, pro Russian, and marginal political formations, such as the Communist Party, the Party of Regions, the People's Party of Ukraine, Sharia, and so on, regardless of age, gender views, and contribution to the victory. That's an important thing there. And contribution to the victory. So, in other words, there are some people who, uh, before the war, they were in these pro-Russian parties: the Communist Party, Party of Regions, People's Party of Ukraine. We can talk about what all those different parties were. Sharia, I didn't even know existed, but we can talk about what those things are. It's really important to understand. If you're in America, our politics are very black and white. In Europe, and I think especially so in Ukraine, at least before the war, it's like the difference between black and white TV and color TV. You know? Oh, hey, Catherine. Thanks for coming. Um, so you have a range of colors essentially, but the parties that he's mentioning here, these are all parties that are holdovers and sponsored by holdovers from the Soviet Union and or sponsored by Russia. And we'll talk about the views of them and what that means. Yes. So Secular Sakai, thank you for coming, by the way. Yeah, Ukraine has many parties, and yeah, USA has many factions contained within two parties. A difference in Ukraine, I would say, to an extent, is that because a lot of the electorate, you know, was so non-political, the older people and stuff, it was very common, I've been told, um, in the last 30 years for just some oligarch to just start up a party with it has just some very narrow interest, and the basic interest of the party is to help the oligarch make money, in some way. They're fighting for one simple narrow issue, you know and ultimately the thing behind it is uh there's some oligarch who, you know American politics is definitely has been headed in that direction for a long time, but it was much more open and above board here in Ukraine. And so it was very common for, if an oligarch owned a company, he'd put all his employees on buses and bus them uh, to the um, election office, and all the poor babushkas in the village would get a sack of potatoes, you know, saying, "Vote for me." And that was enough. That's they don't know, they don't care about politics or anything. They'll be vote for whoever gives them the biggest sack of potatoes, basically, literally buying votes. So, anyway, let's get to the point of this. Um, so, regardless of the contribution to the victory, that's very important. Should forever be deprived of the right to be elected or work in leading/influential positions in state and municipal bodies. Real uncompromising lustration. I don't know what lustration is. Real uncompromising once and for all. Only in this way will we pull out the poisonous sting from, quote, marginal politics. Will it work? Absolutely. Why? Because today the collective boycott does not really want Russia here. He wants his personal political influence and access to resources, and such access is impossible without minute. So Boyko is this guy who's being presented as the picture of these types of corrupt people, essentially. You know, and the reason this is important, this statement, regardless of contribution to victory, is that a lot of these, you know, guys are now kind of wolves in sheep's clothing. Um, let's see. You know they exist. Says I was lurking installed. The concept, I paraphrase, that each missile represents 10 big bribes for politicians is profound. Yeah, with all the missiles, how bribery is actually going on. Well, it is. Um, I mean, you should regard this political manipulation machinations within European politics and American politics by Russia in this exactly like a missile. It's actually more effective than a missile. You know, really, it's more effective. So, uh, it's just classic KGB tactics. I'm not the only one talking about this. Everybody's starting to talk about it now. Um, hey Anna. uh, but this is really interesting, right? Though, because okay, who is the corrupt person? Who in Ukrainian society deserves to be excluded from the halls of power? You know, uh, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that both in both in any democracy, I think that there should be a certain income level in any democracy above which you are excluded from power. In other words, you're not just, you can't run for office if you make more money than a certain amount, right? But you also cannot influence politics in any way except your vote. I think that's the kind of laws that we need, because right now in the United States, money is speech. Corporations are people. And so rich people have more rights than you or I, you know? Um, yeah, so Shere Khan says lobbying needs some reform. Agreed. I mean, I really think that if you make too much money, as a corporation or a single individual, or maybe your collective family, because you try to hide your money in these, your wife makes some, and your son and your grandpa or whatever. Yeah, you can't lobby. You can have your choice. You can have money or you can have power. I think these are, and yeah, okay. So our Supreme Court would say, well, you are restricting speech. I disagree. I just disagree. Did someone mention Musk? Did I need to? You did, Ronnie. um, Jonathan, or sorry, as the sod turns, says old British tactics says make these politicians too greedy to oppose Ukraine, and they will be either useless to Putin or start to help, or you can easily be watched for info. Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, hey, I'm just throwing it out there, Sakai. But Sakai says I would say that forcing out individual millionaires, billionaires isn't the way. Far too easy to bypass with advanced financial tactics. I just think that maybe our governments need to become more advanced. I mean, the SEC currently, under its current director, of course, that's going to change in a month. Um, but yeah, far too easy to bypass with advanced financial tactics. Purging money from campaigns as a whole is the key. Yeah, making voting mandatory, and it's a national holiday, so everybody has the day off, paid holiday. Everybody has time and opportunity to go vote, and it's mandatory. And you can't spend your own money on campaigns. The government gives you a set amount of money, and that's what you have to spend on your campaign, period. Nobody else can help. I mean, that's how a lot of countries in Europe do it, you know, countries all over the world. Um, but my idea is even more extreme than that, because I think that, um, power corrupts, you know, power corrupts, and that's the point of this article, is they keep finding ways to come back in, to wheedle their way, to manipulate and um, undermine our democracy. Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. There we go. There are rules, like in the time that Jimmy Carter had to give up his peanut farm. Yeah. Well, what happened to those rules now? Justice is not holding him to account. Agreed. Um, yeah, Anna, hold accountable all donations. No more dark money. So the fight that Ukraine is fighting right now is the fight that um, we all are having. It's just Ukraine is at the forefront of that, and I want to see if I can find an example. So understand that Ukrainian society. Remember, oligarchy, Russian oligarchy, Ukrainian oligarchy, and yes, there are these democratic elements, but then there's this Russian oligarchy constantly oppressing those, and there's this fight going on between the democratic elements. Well, now, if you're an oligarch, you have to show you can't rely. Russia's not going to back you up anymore. That's the point of this article, right? Um, to finally face the truth and do what we should have done in 2014. Now, okay, so what they're saying here. So, but it's hard, right? Because there are oligarchs like former President Poroshenko. Okay, I can't list them all off the top of my head. They're helping. Their money is incredibly important to Ukraine's war effort. Okay, how do you say to them, "Thank you for your money. Now go away. You can't have any power or influence." You know, Ukraine's dependent on that. They need those people, and so some of these people are using the power that they have, knowing that the war is going to end. And when the war ends, they want to be able to wheedle their way back into power and play that same game again. And so they're actually, what he's talking about here in this article is at least for the time being, these former arguably Russian supporters, if not ideologically, then at least through their actions, through their corruption. Um, it's in their best interest now to, rah rah, buying drones, supporting Ukraine. But what happens when the war ends? You know, are we, you know, are we going to see that again? It's just going to come back again because we haven't really gotten rid of the problem. Um, an example would be like this guy, for example. Um, you know, here's another article. You know, he was part of the he was actually part of the SBU, and he was I don't know, I'm just learning about it. I don't know the whole story about it. Um, and he was fighting corruption ostensibly, but then after he started fighting corruption, it started to come out that, well, actually he's using money to, here's his son using money to you know, help his wife make a bunch of money. But here he is, he's, you know, helping Ukraine and fundraising for Ukraine, working with, you know, as an NGO, you know. So is this a good guy or a bad guy? And this, I mean, you've got fingers pointing, people pointing fingers at each other, and if you read this article, he basically was fighting crime, and then the crime fighters, I'm sorry, the criminals, were basically hiring journalists to, you know, smear him, to discredit him, right? So what's true? Who knows what's true? This is, and I would argue that this is uh, not only tearing Ukrainian society apart, but even within the military, you know. And I'm speaking about things, you know, in very general terms because, yeah, um, it, just that it's almost like this, like I was saying, this war that's being fought is really in happening in hearts and minds in Ukraine, you know. And I don't have the article up in front of me, but I'm gonna Ukraine drone production. Yeah, here we go. Let's talk about, you know, how this plays out in terms of drone production, right? So it says Ukraine to simplify procurement of drones, electronic warfare equipment. Um, so Ukraine's cabinet ministers, December 24th, approved a resolution to simplify the procurement of domestically produced drones and electronic warfare equipment. So the situation that you've got now, this is very interesting. Military commanders will be this. I'm first time reading this article here. This is not the article I thought I was going to find. It's not the article I was reading earlier. It shows you how quickly things are changing rather. Military commanders will now be able to purchase tactical level drones and electronic warfare equipment without complicated bureaucratic approvals. That is fantastic. That is fantastic news because, like, you see, a huge problem is you've got at least hundreds of drone, little tiny little drone companies. Every other like phone repair shop, you know, is now a drone shop. I mean, I can't tell you how many times walked in. I think maybe the last time I was in Kiev, I just happened to be having, you know, a quick sashlik at a restaurant, and I think I may have told this story. And the owners heard me talking in English, and they invited me to come over and sit with them, and made me drink whiskey with them. And this is what happens when you're an American here. And you know, I told them that I was, you know, working with drones. This is before I actually joined um, before I joined the army, and I told him, you know, I was, you know, building drones, and it's kind of working with some of these secret drone labs. And the owner's like, "Oh yeah, we have a secret drone lab. It's right there behind the door, right there." You know, just everybody and their uncle. You swing a dead cat, you'll hit a secret drone lab in Kiev. Um, so every, like, not just brigade, but down to the specific, like, squad level, practically has its own drone manufacturer. And every oligarch has his own drone company that's he's trying to, you know, I mean, follow the money, right? And so, but this is good and bad. Okay, it's good because there's tons of innovation going on. Everybody's innovating. I've been involved in some of it, you know, um, but they're they're kind of reinventing each other's wheels. There's a lot of people nobody's cooperating because they're all looking at, hey, I want to get that government contract, or after the war we're going to have this company, it's going to be successful. Yeah, Frag says you need to have regulation and QAs, right? And that was a big problem. So this is something that's being slowly implemented. Okay, but so then there's the flip side of that. So what I just described to you, which is every little unit has its own freaking drone company making drones for them, or volunteer organization, or whatever it is. Then there's the flip side, which is, I would say, the US government defense procurement system, which is what it's come down to now. Is you basically have arguably one big giant company, Lockheed Martin, that just does everything, and you have some freaking engineers in some ivory tower, and they never speak to the troops who are actually going to use the stuff that they're designing. And half the time they send stuff out to be used by the troops, and the soldiers are like, this is crap, what the hell? And then it has to go back for another 10 years of R&D. Okay, and I feel like, but the advantage to that is that when they finally do land on something that works, they can just, like, make a ton of that one thing because it's all centralized. That, I would argue, is the Russian model. So what Russia has been doing is, um, uh, basically, as soon as Ukraine makes an innovation, like, for example, uh, fiber optic drones, you know, as I understand, uh, fiber optic drones were invented in Ukraine or for Ukraine. Okay, but and to there was a Forbes article about it not too long ago. Anyway, maybe they were invented in America, or by some Americans, and to hear some tell it, uh, this group may have been involved in the first fiber optic drones in Ukraine. Well, guess what happened? Russia copied the shit out of that, and since, like, spring of last year, have been using them en masse in Ukraine to great effect. And Ukraine is just finally only now, you know, one step away from mass deployment of fiber optic drones. Okay, so Russia, every good idea Ukraine has, Russia copies it and just makes a million of that thing. So Ukraine desperately, desperately needs to scale uh, its drone production, right? But if you have 100 freaking bajillion little tiny ass drone companies all making their own little thing, h- how can you scale that, right? At the same time, and every unit, and it's and this is the thing. So I was speaking with someone, a Ukrainian, about this, and I won't say what what if they were in the army or what, but, you know, I said, well, the advantage of that is that there's this direct feedback. The pilots who are flying these drones, they're able to talk directly to the engineers or the people building the drones and say, hey, this didn't work, change this. Or the repair people, is this fast turnaround time for innovation, right? And he said, well, yeah, but it's corruption. It's corruption, you know, which I'm not sure I completely understand that concept. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it because in my mind, monopoly is corruption. In other words, this big Lockheed Martin, you know, one single defense contractor, that's corruption in my American mind. And a bunch of little individual companies innovating, that's Silicon Valley in my mind. But I understand the necessity of getting corruption, all corruption aside, the necessity of scaling, and converting from bespoke Silicon Valley to, Ford, uh, mass manufacturing type stuff. And this is a very key time in Ukraine, making that transition. And at the same time, you have this wrapped up in these accusations of corruption happening, and these oligarchs who, they're the ones with the money to invest in this kind of mass scale manufacturing. Okay. it's it's a problem, you know hey, Cheryl. Thank you for watching Aziz's concert. I'm sorry, I hate to overlap with other YouTubers, but God, I don't have time to worry about it anymore, guys. You know, like I only probably have time to do a live stream every couple of weeks, and I'm like, this is the time I have. And uh, uh, I was working literally. I said at the beginning, I was working until 20 minutes before the stream. So, um, Herb says, I have missed you all. Merry Christmas or blessed solstice, whatever you believe in. That's right, and you will too. Uh, Yeah, I saw. Paul says I saw a release from Robert Magyar. He was saying the fiber optic drones are like flying in soup, slow reacting and hard to control. That's interesting. I think that's just going to require different, just iterations of innovation. You know, and I can't tell you what I'm working on, but or working with, uh, but yeah. Um, Wow. So, we've done an hour. I really, really hope that I get to do another live stream soon. Um, I'm gonna try for Sunday, and I hope that I hope I have some. There's a lot of amazing new things coming, and God, I wish I could tell you the things I'm doing. It's it's amazing, guys. It's amazing. I mean, I've only been here a month. Um, a little over a month, and I am okay. As you know, the okay, maybe you don't know the drone force, and this is the last thing I'll talk about. Um, Ukraine reorganization. Yeah. So, um, oh, look at that. Yeah, I read this too. The Russian army may establish a separate drone system service. Oh, maybe it's here, maybe it's not. Okay, I guess I'm not finding the article, but it's there. Basically, the Ukrainian drone force, it's brand new, and they're setting everything up and organizing and reorganizing and setting up processes, and um, this transition that I just spoke about, and these conflicts that I just spoke about. Um, I'm I'm like right in the thick of it, right in the middle of it all, and just, I mean, kind of just watching it happen, um, the good and the bad, and I don't know enough to be able to make judgments about which way it's going to go. But I will say that I'm going to use my my stupidity, my stupidity, which would be my willingness to speak up when maybe I shouldn't. Um, I will try to use it wisely, but I'm going to try to use it to influence the direction that things are going, for the better. You know, because I think that it's such a delicate transition, what I just spoke about, and um, taking anything to an extreme is always bad. You know, extreme capitalism, extreme communism is always bad. Um, oh, Ronnie, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were still blocked on Discord. I apologize to you guys. I'm sure you can understand. Uh, I will remember to do that. Thank you for bringing it up, Ronnie. I will remember to do that after the stream. Um, yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Paul. Paul says, "Damn, James, I'm so excited for you. I know your technology will be so useful for Ukraine." Yeah, I was literally just after this morning, just walking around like I had a little break in between work, and I was just walking around the city with just a big shit-eating grin on my face because I was just like, "Wow, this is so fucking awesome." So fucking awesome, and I'm just so glad to be a part of it. Um, Even with all the craziness. Uh, I wish I'm going to have some fundraising stuff coming up, not just help me out and support me. If you can, please do. But I'm going to have some fundraising hopefully coming up. I have some proposals that I'm having meetings, and it's going to be uh, uh, it's gonna there are big things coming, is what I would say. Um, Potentially, if all goes well. Um, yeah, because I'm not just doing like James Bond times NASA shit. I'm also going to be and have been actively fundraising for um, the innovation that I'm. Oh, and by the way, guys, some of you donated some, significant amounts of money after my last couple of live streams, and I haven't had time, but I wanted to let you know that a lot of that money actually went to buy like tools and um, materials for the innovation for the drone team that I'm on, and you'll see some hopefully soon some the videos. I'm talking about basic tools like freaking a jigsaw, a sander. I mean, they had that. Well, they didn't have a jigsaw. Good God. Um, so you're gonna get to see pictures of, or maybe some videos of the guys receiving those things. I took it. That was last week or 2 weeks ago, and I just haven't had time to upload it. Um, Thank you, Herb. Herb says, James, may great Odin's dead eye give you knowledge and wisdom. Diakuyu, sir. May great Odin's strength give you longevity and faith. And it wasn't me. Thank you for the stream, James. Does please stay safe sound too naive or too naive to you? No, it does not. It does not. Safety is a spectrum. Um, Thank you. Return on, Herb says, return on or with your shield, mighty warrior, but please return with. You are important. Thank you, Herb. Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely important yet, but I feel like I'm in a place where I can do something, where I can do something significant and have a positive influence, you know, in a positive way, and it feels really good. And and the real Vladimir Putin has graced us with his presence. Um, thank you for coming. I hope you liked my little mouse joke, Vlad. Um, so where just one last thing I want to add, and that is on this topic here, somebody, yes, right here, Seppo 532 asked, can you explain the context? This is talking about the Communist Party regions. Can you explain the context for an American surrounding the groups mentioned? Are the groups somewhere between the ineffective DSA and the Weather Underground? Are they actual political parties with power? Would any group mentioned be described as tankies? And here's what I would say about it. And I think, did I say that? Oh, I said absolutely not, nothing like that. Communists are the conservatives. This is a really crazy thing here in Ukraine, and I want to leave you with this. The communists are the conservatives, and the values that they espouse, okay, are conservative values. It doesn't matter that they're called communists, like family values and uh even like religion and stuff, even though they're called communists, right? And so they're all on the same side. The Communist Party, the Party of Regions, Party of Regions. Uh, I, I'm afraid I can't really explain it completely. It's just suffice to say they're pro Russia, and they arguably, in the name, you can kind of see they're arguably their strategy or interest was in kind of breaking up Ukraine into these regions of very specific interests, and they were unified by by in fact their separate interests. But yeah, I mean, they were like 25% of the Ukrainian Congress, the Verkhovna Rada. I want to say more than 20%, between 20 and 25%, enough to be a plurality, and the People's Party of Ukraine, these similar kind of a thing. They're all Russian sponsored, basically. Um, so it doesn't matter what they call them. The Communist Party in Russia is, this is the thing. Conservatives in America think they're supporting Orban because he supports conservative values, but he's actually a lot more socialist than people realize. And the same thing with Fico in Slovakia, for example. You know, they're socialists, quote unquote, with conservative values. You know, um, Robert, thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for all of your contributions. And the last thing I guess I want to say is I'm very sorry um, that your donation went to the wrong place. Um, Lauren, yeah, actually, in Russia, the Communist Party is a lot more similar to MAGA. They're like extreme nationalists, and they say all kinds of extreme crazy stuff, you know. And so the Communist Party in Ukraine arguably kind of represents that. And what do they even have to do with like actual values of communism and Marxism? Who freaking knows? It doesn't even matter anymore. It's just a word. It's just a name. People, old people who remember the Soviet Union, they vote for it because, oh, communists. But what their actual policies are have nothing to do with, you know, Karl Marx or Lenin or any of that. And the same, I would say, is true for MAGA, right? Totally the opposite of uh, my cartel always gets 99% of the vote. Yeah, exactly, Vlad. Exactly. So that's the thing I just wanted to leave you with. And I hope that helps and clarifies. And it looks like Seppo said I did kind of clarify that. I hope I didn't come across wrong there, Seppo. Um, so yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody, and I hope that all of you have a wonderful Christmas, and I hope that I hope that I get to see you all again soon. And thank you so much, all of you who've supported me through this. And Slava Ukraine.